Grace Miller was on her knees when the door opened. Not because she had fallen, not because she had dropped something, because a woman in diamonds had decided Grace belonged there. The hallway of the Regent Crown Hotel glittered around her like a world designed to make ordinary people feel invisible. White marble floors reflected chandeliers. Gold-framed mirrors caught every movement. The air smelled of white roses, expensive perfume, and champagne that cost more than Grace made in a week. Her cleaning cart stood beside her. Towels folded perfectly. Glass spray lined up like soldiers. Fresh sheets wrapped in plastic. She had been pushing it quietly past the presidential suite when the women blocked her. There were 4 of them, all slim, beautiful, polished in the way money made people look untouched by weather or hunger or exhaustion. Their heels clicked like little knives against the marble. The one in the center, Vivienne Sloan, held a cream-colored purse in one manicured hand and a champagne flute in the other. Grace recognized her from the society pages. Daughter of one of the richest families in Manhattan, heiress, charity board member, the kind of woman who smiled in photographs beside children she would never remember. Vivienne's eyes moved over Grace's body, her hotel uniform, her tired hands, the curve of her hips beneath the gray housekeeping dress. Then she laughed. Not loudly at first, just enough for the others to join. "Do they make you wear that?" Vivienne asked. "Or is it your personal style?" Grace kept her eyes on the floor. She had learned that rich guests like 2 things from hotel staff: silence and obedience. "I'm sorry, Mom," Grace said. "I just need to pass." "Oh, she needs to pass." One of the women stepped closer, blocking the cart with her hip. How adorable. Another woman tilted her head. "I didn't realize housekeeping came in extra large." The laughter sharpened. Grace felt heat crawl up her neck. But she did not cry. She had been called worse by people who had less. She had survived unpaid bills, hospital corridors, eviction notices, and nights when a child's fever terrified her more than any insult. But humiliation in public had a different kind of cruelty. It pressed into the skin. It made the body feel like evidence. Vivienne slowly lowered her purse and let it fall. The soft cream leather hit the marble at Grace's feet. A gold clasp snapped open. Lipstick rolled out. A compact slid beside Grace's shoe. A small silver keychain spun once before going still. Vivienne smiled. "Pick it up." Grace looked at the purse, then at Vivienne. For 1 second, something inside Grace almost rose. Something tired, something angry, something that wanted to say no. But then she thought of Lily, 7 years old, curly brown hair, missing front tooth, sleeping in their tiny queen's apartment with a nightlight shaped like the moon. Grace thought of the asthma inhaler on the kitchen counter, the school tuition envelope hidden under the bread box, the rent due in 5 days. So she swallowed her pride and bent down. The women laughed again. Grace reached for the purse. That was when the presidential suite door opened behind them. The sound was quiet, almost gentle, but the hallway changed. The laughter died first. Then the air seemed to tighten. Grace's hand froze inches above the purse. She did not turn right away. She only saw the women's expressions shift from amusement to something much more honest. Fear. A tall man stepped into the hallway. Black shirt, rolled sleeves, tattoos moving like shadows over his forearms, dark hair combed back, sharp yav, eyes the color of winter steel. He did not rush. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Adrian Bellucci had the kind of silence that made people remember every wrong thing they had ever done. Grace knew his name the way everyone in the hotel knew it without speaking it too loudly. He occupied the presidential suite. He arrived with black SUVs and men who wore suits but never smiled. The manager had warned every staff member that Mr. Bellucci was not to be disturbed, offended, delayed, questioned, or spoken to unless spoken to first. Some guests were wealthy. Some were powerful. Adrian Bellucci was feared. Vivienne recovered first. Her smile returned. Softer now. False as candlelight painted on glass. Adrian, she said warmly. We were just... He did not look at her. Not once. His eyes were on Grace, still kneeling, still beside the fallen purse, still holding her breath like the world had caught her doing something shameful. His expression did not soften. It grew colder. What happened, he asked. No one answered. Vivienne gave a delicate laugh. Nothing. The maid was helping me. Adrian's eyes flicked to the purse, then back to Grace. The maid has a name. Grace's throat tightened. She should not have spoken. She knew that. Staff were not supposed to insert themselves into guest situations, especially not with men like him. But something about the way he said it made silence feel worse. Grace, she said quietly. Grace Miller. His gaze did not move from her face. Stand up. Grace Miller. The hallway was so silent, she could hear the tiny hum of the elevator down the corridor. Grace slowly stood. Her knees ached. She kept her chin level even though her cheeks burned. Vivienne's smile thinned. Adrian finally looked at her. It was not a glance. It was a warning. Pick up your own trash. The words landed like a slap. One of the women gasped. Vivienne's mouth opened. But no sound came out. Adrian stepped aside, making space for Grace in her cart. Go, he said. Grace should have moved. Instead, she looked at the purse on the floor, then at him. There was no kindness in his face, no rescue fantasy, no gentle warmth. He looked like a man who could ruin a life before breakfast and sleep perfectly afterward. And yet he had seen her. Not her uniform, not her size. Her. Grace pushed her cart past him, her hands wrapped tightly around the handle. As she crossed the threshold of his shadow, his voice dropped low enough that only she could hear. Do not let them teach you where you belong. Grace looked up. For one impossible second, the hallway disappeared. There was only his face, controlled and dangerous, and the strange sensation that he had not defended her because he was good. He had defended her because something about her humiliation had made him angry. That frightened her more. By the time she reached the service elevator, her hands were shaking. Behind her, Vivienne Sloane bent down and picked up her own purse. But Grace did not see the look Vivienne gave her, a look filled with humiliation and promise. Grace spent the rest of her shift trying to become invisible again. It did not work. By 4 o'clock, every staff member in housekeeping had heard about the incident. By 5, the assistant manager called Grace into a back office that smelled like burnt coffee and printer ink. Mr. Hensley stood behind his desk, red-faced and sweating through his collar. Do you have any idea what you've done? He demanded. Grace stared at him. I cleaned the 11th floor. You embarrassed a VIP guest. I didn't embarrass anyone. You involved Mr. Bellucci. I didn't open his door. Mr. Hensley lowered his voice. You think being clever helps you? Grace said nothing. He slid a printed complaint across the desk. Vivienne Sloane's name sat at the bottom in elegant script. She says you were rude, aggressive, and intentionally caused a scene. Grace almost laughed. It would have come out broken. Of course she did. You resuspended pending review. The words struck harder than the insults. Grace felt the office tilt slightly. Suspension meant no shifts. No shifts meant no paycheck. No paycheck meant choosing between rent and Lily S. medication. Mr. Hensley, please, I need this job. Then you should have remembered your place. Grace looked at him. Something in her went still. There it was again. Place. As if the world had assigned her a corner and everyone with money had been given permission to shove her back into it. She left the office without begging again. In the staff locker room, she changed out of her uniform with stiff fingers. Her phone buzzed twice. A message from Mrs. Alvarez. The neighbor watching Lily. Lily's cough is better. She ate soup. Don't worry. Grace closed her eyes. Don't worry. As if worry was a faucet she could turn off. When she stepped out through the service entrance into the alley behind the hotel, rain was falling in thin silver lines. New York traffic hissed beyond the narrow street. Steam rose from grates. A delivery truck idled near the curb. A black SUV waited beneath the awning. Grace stopped. The rear door opened. A man in a suit stepped out. Broad-shouldered. Expression unreadable. Miss Miller, he said. Mr. Bellucci would like a word. Grace's heart sank. No. The man blinked as if people did not often say that around Adrian Bellucci. Grace tightened her grip on her tote bag. Tell him I'm not available. The man did not move. Then another voice came from behind him. You are suspended, not dead. Adrian Bellucci stepped from the shadows of the awning. Rain touched his black hair and the shoulders of his coat. The city seemed to bend around him. Grace's pulse betrayed her. What do you want? She asked. His eyes moved over her face. To know why Vivian Sloane went pale when you reached for her purse. Grace frowned. She didn't. She did. I was too busy being humiliated to notice. Something flashed in his eyes. Not guilt. Not pity. Interest. Did you see anything inside it? Lipstick. A compact. Maybe a keychain. Grace shook her head. Why does it matter? Because Vivian Sloane does not drop anything by accident. Grace remembered the silver keychain rolling across the floor. A tiny engraved symbol. A rose wrapped around a dagger. She had seen it for less than a second. But now it came back with strange clarity. She had a keychain. Grace said slowly. Silver. A rose and a knife. Adrian's face changed. Only slightly. But enough. What? Grace asked. He stepped closer. The suited man beside the SUV looked away. As if he knew better than to witness whatever passed across Adrian's face. Did she see you notice it? I don't know. That means yes. Grace let out a bitter breath. Wonderful. I lost my job because a rich woman didn't like bending down. And now apparently I am in some kind of crime riddle. Adrian studied her. Most men became irritated when Grace was sharp. They expected gratitude. Apology. Softness. Adrian only looked more fascinated. You are not afraid enough, he said. I'm exhausted. Sometimes they look similar. For the first time, the corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. Then his phone buzzed. He checked the screen. Whatever he saw erased the moment. His voice became ice. Get in the car. Grace stepped back. Absolutely not. Grace. The way he said her name made the rain feel quieter. There is a man across the street who has been watching you for 7 minutes. He is not hotel security. He is not mine. If you walk to the subway alone, he will follow. Her body went cold. She looked past him. Across the alley, beneath the broken glow of a street lamp, a man in a gray coat turned away too quickly. Grace's fear rose fast and ugly. Adrian opened the SUV door wider. I am not asking because I enjoy being refused. Grace looked at the car, then at the street, then at Adrian. You think getting into a car with you is safer? No, he said. I think right now, I am the danger that wants you alive. That should not have comforted her. It did. She got in. The SUV smelled of leather, rain, and faint tobacco. Adrian sat beside her, not touching, not crowding her, but his presence filled the space anyway. As the car pulled away, Grace watched the Regent crown disappear behind them. What is this really about? She asked. Adrian looked out the window. 3 years ago, my sister was murdered. Grace went still. He continued without emotion, which somehow made it worse. She had a daughter. The child disappeared the same night. Every lead died. Every witness vanished. Every document was burned. But 2 weeks ago, I received a message saying the girl had been hidden in New York under a false name. Grace's hand tightened around her tote. I'm sorry, she said. Because she was. Even if he terrified her, even if men like him carried grief like weapons. Adrian turned his head. The symbol you saw on Vivian's keychain belonged to the man who ordered my sister's death. Grace's mouth went dry. Why tell me this? Because whoever sent that man to watch you believes you saw more than you did. The SUV turned onto Fifth Avenue. Rain blurred the lights into gold and red streaks. Grace thought of Lily in her pajamas, curled on the sofa with her stuffed rabbit. She thought of the small gold necklace the child always wore, a round locket with a faded rose engraved on the back. Her blood went cold. Adrian noticed. He noticed everything. What is it? He asked. Grace looked at him and lied. Nothing. His eyes narrowed, but before he could speak, her phone rang. Mrs. Alvarez. Grace answered immediately. Hello. On the other end, Mrs. Alvarez was whispering. Grace. Someone knocked on your door. Grace sat up straight. What? A man. He said he was from the school. I didn't open. He is still in the hallway. Grace's vision blurred with panic. Lily. She is with me. I locked the chain. Adrian leaned forward. Address. Grace ignored him. Mrs. Alvarez. Don't open the door. Adrian's voice became deadly calm. Grace. Address. She looked at him. Every instinct screamed not to trust him. But Lily was upstairs with a stranger outside the door. Grace gave him the address. The SUV changed direction so violently, her shoulder hit the seat. Adrian spoke into his phone in Italian, his voice low and lethal. The city outside became a smear of wet glass and headlights. His men followed behind them in another SUV. Grace gripped her phone so hard it hurt. I swear, she whispered. If something happens to her, nothing will happen to her. You don't know that. Adrian looked at her. No, he said, but someone is about to learn it. By the time they reached the old brick building in Queens, 2 black SUVs blocked the street. Adrian was out before the car fully stopped. Grace ran after him. Stay behind me, he ordered. She's my child. The words came out before she could stop them. Adrian froze for half a second, then kept moving. The hallway on the 3rd floor smelled of boiled cabbage and old paint. Mrs. Alvarez's door was locked. Across from it, Grace's apartment door stood slightly open. Grace's heart stopped. Adrian lifted one hand. His men spread out silently. He pushed open the door. The apartment was dark. A lamp lay broken on the floor. Drawers had been pulled open. Lily's coloring books were scattered across the rug. A small purple backpack had been emptied. Grace made a sound she did not recognize. Adrian turned toward her, but she pushed past him. Lily, Mrs. Alvarez's door opened behind them. Lily ran out, crying. Grace dropped to her knees and caught her so hard they both nearly fell. Baby, Grace whispered. Yuri okay? Yuri okay? Lily sobbed into her shoulder. Adrian stood in the destroyed apartment, completely still. His eyes were not on the broken furniture. They were on the child. On the necklace around Lily's neck, the little gold locket, the rose on the back. For the first time since Grace had met him, Adrian Bellucci looked wounded. Not weak, never weak, but struck somewhere beneath the armor. Grace saw it and immediately pulled Lily behind her. What she demanded, Adrian's jaw tightened. Where did she get that necklace? Grace's fear became fury. Do not look at her like that. Grace. No, you don't get to walk into my life. Put me in your car. Bring danger to my door. And then stare at my little girl like she belongs to you. His eyes lifted to hers. She might. The hallway vanished. Grace heard Mrs. Alvarez gasp softly behind her. Lily clutched Grace's coat. What does that mean? Grace asked. Adrian's voice was quiet. My sister's daughter wore that necklace the night she disappeared. Grace felt the floor shift beneath her. No. I had it made for her. No. Her name was Sophia. Grace shook her head. Her name is Lily. What was her mother's name? Elena. Grace whispered. Adrian closed his eyes. Just once. When he opened them, whatever grief had surfaced was buried again under something far more dangerous. Elena was my sister's middle name. She used it when she went into hiding. Grace could barely breathe. 3 years of memories crashed through her. Elena showing up at Grace's door in the middle of the night, bruised and terrified, begging Grace not to ask questions. Elena pressing documents into Grace's hands. Elena whispering, if anything happens to me, don't let them take Lily. Promise me. Then the car accident. The funeral with no family. The lawyer who vanished. The custody papers that never fully processed. Grace looked down at Lily. The child she had fed, dressed, held through nightmares, loved into laughter. Then back at Adrian. Yuri saying she's yours? My niece. Grace's arms tightened around Lily. Adrian saw it. His expression hardened, but his voice lowered. I am not taking her from you tonight. Tonight, Grace snapped. I am telling you the truth. No. You are telling me the part that helps you. That landed. For a moment. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. Then a sound came from Grace's apartment. A phone vibrating beneath the overturned sofa. One of Adrian's men pulled it out and handed it to him. Adrian looked at the screen. A message glowed there. She kneels well. Let's see if she begs better. Attached was a photo. Grace in the hotel hallway. On her knees. Vivian laughing above her. Grace's stomach turned. Adrian's face became terrifyingly calm. He handed the phone to one of his men. Find where it came from. Then he looked at Grace. You and the child are coming with me. Grace opened her mouth. He cut her off. You can hate me in a safe house. The safe house was not a house. It was a penthouse hidden above a private medical clinic on the Upper East Side. All dark wood, bulletproof glass, and views of Manhattan glittering beneath the rain. Men stood at the elevators. Cameras tracked every corridor. Doors locked with quiet, expensive clicks. Lily fell asleep on a sofa beneath a cashmere blanket, exhausted from crying. Grace sat beside her, one hand resting protectively on the child's back. Adrian stood across the room near the windows, his reflection layered over the city. He had not touched Lily, not once. But he had watched her with a restraint so severe it almost hurt to see. Grace hated him for making her afraid. She hated him more for being connected to the truth. "You knew," she said. Adrian turned. "I suspected." "That's not better." "No. You used me." His jaw flexed. "I used the situation." Grace laughed once, without humor. That sounds like something men say when they want betrayal to sound strategic. His eyes sharpened. "You think I wanted this. I think men like you always want something." He walked toward her slowly, not threatening, but powerful enough that the room changed with each step. Grace stood, refusing to look small. Adrian stopped an arm's length away. Right, he said. "I want the people who butchered my sister. I want the men who erased a child. I want every person who touched that little girl's life with fear to wake up knowing my name is the last sound they will hear." Grace swallowed. His voice dropped. "And now I want to know why a hotel maid with nothing protected my blood better than my entire empire." The words hit too close. Grace looked away first. "Elena was my friend," she whispered. "She was scared. She trusted me. And you never looked for her family. She told me her family was dangerous." She wasn't wrong. Grace looked back at him. There was no apology in his face. Only truth. That was worse. The next morning, Grace's face was on the news. Not because anyone cared that she had been humiliated. Because someone had turned her humiliation into scandal. A society gossip account posted an edited video from the Regent Crown hallway. The clip showed Grace kneeling, Adrian stepping out, Vivienne looking shocked, and then Grace passing into the frame beside him. The caption suggested Grace had been caught stealing from a wealthy guest and protected by a dangerous lover. Within hours, every headline became uglier. Mafia boss defends hotel maid in theft scandal. Mystery woman linked to Bellucci family. Socialite claims priceless bracelet vanished after hotel incident. Grace watched the screen with numb disbelief. Her phone had hundreds of messages, some from coworkers, some from unknown numbers, some cruel, some threatening, some asking how much Adrian paid her. Lily sat at the kitchen island coloring quietly. Guarded by one of Adrian's men, Grace turned off the TV. Adrian stood behind her. "This is Vivienne," he said. Grace turned on him. "You sound calm." "I am calm. My life is being destroyed." "Yes." Her anger flared. "That's all you have?" His eyes darkened. "No. What I have is every bank account tied to the first account that posted that video. I have the name of the hotel manager who sent the security footage. I have 3 men in a basement explaining why they were outside your apartment. And I have Vivienne Sloan running out of friends faster than she realizes." Grace stared at him. He said it like weather. Like vengeance was an appointment on his calendar. "I don't want people hurt because of me," she said. "They are not being hurt because of you." He stepped closer. "They are being hurt because they touched what was under my protection." Grace's pulse jumped. "Don't say that." "Why?" "Because I'm not yours." The room went quiet. Adrian's gaze dropped to her mouth for one forbidden second, then returned to her eyes. "No," he said. "You are not." It should have been relief. Instead, the space between them felt unbearably charged. "But everyone hunting you," he continued, "needs to believe you are." Grace folded her arms. "What does that mean?" "It means Vivienne framed you as my weakness. We make that mistake expensive." "You want to use me again?" "I want to stand beside you in front of every person who laughed while you were on your knees and make them wonder which one of us should be more afraid." Grace looked at him for a long time. You think power fixes humiliation? No. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, but it can make cowards regret enjoying it. That evening, Adrian took Grace back to the Regent Crown, not through the service entrance, through the front doors. The lobby was packed for a charity auction hosted by Vivienne Sloane's foundation. Cameras flashed against gold columns. Waiters moved with champagne trays. Manhattan's elite glittered beneath chandeliers, pretending their curiosity was sophistication. Grace wore a deep emerald dress Adrian had sent with 3 other options, and a note that said, "Only choose what makes you feel dangerous." She had almost thrown all of them back at him. Then she remembered Vivian's laughter. So she chose the emerald. The dress hugged her curves instead of hiding them. Her hair fell in soft waves. Her hands trembled as she stepped from the SUV. But her chin stayed high. Adrian waited beside the open door. For 1 second. He only looked at her. The look was controlled, restrained, but it moved over Grace like heat. "You look angry," he said. "I am." "Good." He offered his arm. Grace stared at it. "This doesn't mean I forgive you." "I did not ask for forgiveness." "Smart." His mouth almost curved. Grace took his arm. The lobby went silent when they entered. Vivienne saw them from across the room. Her champagne glass paused halfway to her lips. Adrian did not look at anyone except Grace. That made it worse for them. People whispered. Cameras turned. Grace felt every stare scrape across her skin. She had walked these floors in a housekeeping uniform for 2 years. Invisible, unless someone wanted to complain. Now they saw her because Adrian Bellucci had made seeing her dangerous. Vivian approached with a smile sharp enough to cut silk. "Grace," she said sweetly, "how brave of you to come back after everything." Grace felt Adrian's arm tighten slightly beneath her hand, but she answered before he could. "I work here. I did before you lied." A few people gasped. Vivienne's eyes glittered. "You should be careful. Women, in your position, don't survive public scandal." "Well?" Grace smiled faintly. "Women in my position survive everything. That's why people like you hate us." The silence deepened. Adrian looked at Grace then. Not with surprise. With fascination so intense, it nearly stole her breath. Vivian's face hardened. "You really think standing next to him makes you important?" Grace's stomach twisted. But Adrian spoke, calm and cold. "No. She was important when she was kneeling, and none of you were worth the floor beneath her." A camera flashed. Vivian flushed. Adrian turned to the crowd. "The Regent Crown has accepted stolen security footage, false guest complaints, and criminal harassment under its roof." His voice carried without effort. "As of 10 minutes ago, I own controlling interest in the company that owns this hotel." Chaos rippled through the room. Mr. Hensley, the assistant manager, looked like he might faint. Adrian continued. "Grace Miller is reinstated with full back pay, public apology, and authority to name every employee who helped bury what happened to her." Grace stared at him. She had not known. He had not told her. Anger and shock twisted together. "You bought the hotel," she whispered. His eyes remained forward. "I bought the room where they laughed." That should have terrified her. It did. But beneath the fear was something dangerously close to awe. Vivienne leaned closer, voice low enough for only Grace to hear. "He won't keep you. Men like him enjoy broken things until they bleed on the furniture." Grace's face went cold. Adrian heard. Of course he heard. His gaze moved to Vivienne. "Say one more word to her." Vivienne smiled. "Or what?" Adrian stepped closer, not touching her, not raising his voice, but every person in the room felt the violence in his stillness. "Or I stopped remembering your father asked me to leave you breathing. Vivian's smile died. That was the first time Grace understood that Adrian's restraint was not mercy. It was discipline, and discipline could end. Later that night, Grace found the surveillance room by accident, or maybe fate had grown tired of whispering. She had stepped into a staff corridor to breathe, away from the cameras and champagne and Adrian's overwhelming presence. Her heels hurt. Her head spun. The emerald dress suddenly felt like armor too heavy to carry. Then she heard voices. Vivian S. and Mr. Hensley S. Grace followed the sound past the service elevator, down a narrow hallway toward an unmarked maintenance door. Through the crack, she saw monitors, dozens of them, hotel cameras, private hallway feeds, elevator angles, and on one screen, a paused image of Lily outside Grace's apartment building. Grace's blood turned to ice. On another monitor was a photo of Adrian entering the Regent Crown 2 weeks earlier. Another showed Grace pushing her cart. Another showed the hallway incident. A wall beside the monitors held printed photos connected by red string. Elena, Lily, Adrian, Grace, and in the center, Vivienne Sloan. Mr. Hensley stood beside her, sweating. I did everything you asked, he said. The video, the complaint, the bracelet. But Bellucci bought the hotel. I can't control the files anymore. Vivian's voice was calm. Then we stopped trying to control the hotel. Grace backed away. Her heel clicked against the floor. Vivian turned. Their eyes met. For one terrible second, no one moved. Then Grace ran. She made it halfway down the corridor before a hand grabbed her arm. She twisted, ready to scream. Adrian, his eyes swept her face. What happened? They have cameras, photos. Lily, Elena, everything. Adrian's expression changed into something lethal. Before he could move, the lights went out. The entire hotel dropped into darkness. For one heartbeat, there was only silence. Then gunfire cracked through the lobby. Grace flinched. Adrian pulled her against him, one arm around her waist, his body shielding hers as glass shattered somewhere beyond the corridor. Stay down, he ordered. His men appeared from the shadows like they had been born there. Adrian pushed Grace behind a marble column as guests screamed in the distance. The hotel that had glittered like a palace became a war zone of emergency lights, shattered crystal, and running footsteps. Grace's breath came too fast. Lily, she whispered. She is safe. How do you know? Because I put more men around her than around myself. That stopped her. Adrian looked down at her. For one fractured moment, danger roared around them. And still the space between his body and hers felt like the center of the world. He lifted one hand toward her face, stopped before touching her. His fingers curled into a fist. Then he turned away. Get her to the car, he told his men. Grace grabbed his sleeve. What about you? His eyes returned to hers. Something unspoken moved there. Something he refused to name. I finish what came for us. Grace wanted to tell him not to go. She hated that she wanted to, but his men were already pulling her toward the service exit. As they ran, Grace looked back once. Adrian stood in the dark corridor. Black shirt, tattooed arms, gun in hand, framed by emergency lights and smoke. He looked like the kind of man mothers warn daughters about. And the only reason Grace was alive, the betrayal came from inside his own house. His name was Massimo, Adrian S. Consigliere, his oldest friend, the man who had stood beside him at funerals, negotiations, and wars that never made the news. Grace learned his name at dawn. In the safe house. When Adrian returned with a cut across his cheek and blood on his collar that he said was not his, Lily was asleep in the bedroom. Grace stood in the kitchen, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the city beyond the glass. Adrian entered quietly, too quietly for a man carrying that much violence. "You should be resting," he said. "You should stop telling me what to do." He leaned against the counter. For the first time, he looked tired. Not physically. Something deeper. "They knew the route to the clinic," he said. "They knew where Lily was staying. They knew the Regent Crown security codes after I replaced the staff." Grace understood. "Someone close to you." Adrian nodded once. "Massimo." The name seemed to cost him nothing. That was how Grace knew it cost him everything. "I'm sorry," she said. His eyes lifted. "Do not give me softness tonight." "Why?" "Because I might take it." The air shifted. Grace's heart beat harder. He looked away first. That small act felt more intimate than a kiss. Grace stepped closer before she could think better of it. There was a thin line of dried blood near his cheekbone. She reached for a towel, wet it under the sink, and held it out. He did not take it. So she stepped closer and touched the cloth to his face herself. Adrian went completely still. Grace felt the heat of him, the control. The danger held inches from her fingers. His eyes lowered to her mouth. "You should be afraid of me," he said. "I am." Her voice was honest. His gaze sharpened. "But not only that," she added. The silence became almost unbearable. He lifted his hand. This time, he did touch her. Not her waist, not her face, just her wrist. Gently, as if asking permission from a world that had never asked him for anything. Grace's breath caught. Then the bedroom door opened. Grace Lily called sleepily. Adrian released her immediately. Grace stepped back, shaken by the loss of contact. Lily stood in the doorway holding her stuffed rabbit. Adrian's face changed. It did not soften exactly, but something in him became painfully careful. Lily looked at the cut on his cheek. "Are you hurt?" Adrian crouched slowly, keeping distance. "A little." Grace has cartoon bandages. Grace almost smiled through the ache in her chest. Adrian looked at her. "Does she?" Lily nodded seriously. "The dinosaur ones are the best." Adrian's mouth twitched. Grace felt something inside her crack open. Not trust. Not yet. But the possibility of it. The next afternoon, Grace overheard the conversation that nearly destroyed everything. Adrian was in the study with two of his men. The door was mostly closed. But not enough. "She has leverage." One man said, "Sloan wants the child. They will come through Grace." Adrian's voice followed. "I know." Grace froze. The man continued. "Then use that. Let them believe she is the weak point." Silence. Then Adrian said, "She already is." Grace stepped back as if struck. She did not stay to hear the rest. She did not hear Adrian say, "Lower and more dangerous. And if any man says that again, like it is strategy instead of my failure, I will put him through that window." By then, Grace was already packing. She took Lily and left through the service elevator with help from a young guard who did not know better than to believe her when she said Adrian had approved it. By sunset, they were at Penn Station. Grace kept Lily's hood up and her own head down. She had one bag, $200, and no plan except distance. Boston, maybe. Philadelphia, anywhere Adrian Bellucci's world could not reach them. But the station felt wrong. Too many men standing still. Too many eyes not moving naturally. Lily held Grace's hand. "Are we going on a train?" Yes, baby. Does Adrian know? Grace, throat tightened. No. Lily looked worried. He'll be sad. Grace almost laughed and almost cried. Men like him don't get sad. A voice behind her said, "That is where you are wrong." Grace turned. Massimo stood 10 feet away. Gray suit, comfudge, silver hair, a gun hidden beneath his coat. Obvious only because Grace had learned to see danger recently. Grace pulled Lily behind her. Massimo smiled sadly. "You made this harder than it needed to be." Grace backed away. People moved around them, unaware of the threat forming in the middle of the station. "You don't want her," Grace said. "She's a child. She is an inheritance. A blood claim. A key to everything Adrian's sister stole before she died." "She stole nothing." Massimo's smile faded. "She stole proof. Names. Accounts. Enough to bury families that built this city." Lily began to cry quietly. Grace's fear became clean and sharp. "Run when I tell you," she whispered. Massimo seahead. Then all the lights in the station flickered. Black SUVs screamed to a stop outside the entrance. Men in dark suits flooded through the doors. And Adrian Bellucci walked into Penn Station like Wrath, wearing a black coat. His eyes found Grace first. Relief flashed across his face so quickly, anyone else would have missed it. Grace did not. 2. Then his gaze moved to Massimo. The station seemed empty of sound. Massimo lifted his hand slightly. "Adrian, you took from my sister," Adrian said. Massimo's expression hardened. "Your sister would have destroyed us. She was trying to save her child. She was trying to save you from becoming your father." That landed somewhere deep. Grace saw it. Adrian stopped walking. Massimo smiled. "You think this woman changes what you are? Look at her. She runs from you because she knows the truth. You are not a man. You are a war with a heartbeat." Grace looked at Adrian. For one terrible second, she saw the words enter him, saw how easily they could become a cage. Then Lily whispered, "Grace, I'm scared." Adrian's eyes moved to the child. Everything in his face changed. Not soft. Devoted. Deadly. He looked back at Massimo. "Then I will be the war standing between her and you." The violence that followed was fast, controlled, and terrifying. Adrian's men moved first. Massimo reached for his weapon, but Adrian crossed the distance before Grace could even scream. There was a struggle. Bodies colliding against a kiosk. People shouting and running. Grace pulled Lily down behind a bench, covering her with her own body. A shot cracked. Glass shattered above them. Adrian was suddenly there, shielding both of them, his coat wrapping around Lily's small body as his men dragged Massimo to the floor. Grace stared at him. Shaking, "You came," she whispered. His face was inches from hers. "You left. I heard you say I was your weak point." His eyes closed briefly. Then he looked at her with something raw enough to frighten them both. "You are." Grace's breath stopped. "Not because I can use you," he said, "because they can hurt me through you." The station blurred around her. Adrian touched her face then. Not quite a caress. More like proof that she was still there. "I have buried everyone I loved," he said. "I was trying not to love what I could lose." Grace's eyes burned. "That's not how love works." "I know." His thumb brushed one tear from her cheek. "I am learning badly." The confession was not sweet. It was broken. And because it was broken, Grace believed it. But the war was not over. Vivian took Lily 2 nights later. Not from lack of guards. Not from carelessness. From betrayal buried under paperwork, a forged court order, a fake child services emergency removal, a woman with a badge, a government seal, and 3 armed men who entered the clinic. While Adrian was in a meeting and Grace was speaking with a lawyer, by the time Grace realized the badge was false, Lily was already in an elevator, screaming her name. Grace fought like an animal. They slammed her into the wall hard enough to split her lip. When Adrian arrived 6 minutes later, the hallway was wrecked. 2 guards were unconscious, and Grace was on the floor with Lily's stuffed rabbit clutched in her hand. Adrian knelt beside her. The look on his face was beyond rage. It was terror. Grace pushed herself up. "Find her." "I will." "No." She grabbed his shirt. "Bring her back." He covered her hand with his action. "I swear on my sister's grave." Vivian called 1 hour later. The phone sat on the table between them. Speaker on. Grace stood beside Adrian in the safe house study. Air, lip, swollen. Her eyes dry because crying felt like wasting strength. Vivian's voice purred through the line. "Grace, I hope you re-comfortable. Lily is, for now." Adrian's hands rested on the table. "Too still. Speak to me," he said. Vivian laughed softly. "No, you don't command this conversation. What do you want?" "The locket. The files inside it. And Grace." Adrian's eyes lifted to Grace. "No." Grace spoke before he could continue. "Where?" Adrian turned on her. "Grace." Vivian smiled through the phone. "She understands. A mother always does." Grace's voice shook, but it did not break. "Where is Lily?" "Regent Crown. Rooftop helipad. Midnight. Come alone." "Grace, bring the locket. If Adrian comes with an army, the child disappears the way she did 3 years ago." The line went dead. Adrian looked at Grace. "No. She wants me. She wants to hurt me. She has Lily. I will not trade you." Grace stepped close to him. The room was full of men. Weapons. Screens. Maps. But all Grace saw was Adrian's face, carved from control and fear. "You don't get to decide whether I risk myself for my child." His jaw tightened. "She is my blood. She is my heart." That silenced him. Grace's eyes filled. "You lost her once without knowing her. I raised her while afraid every day I would fail her. Do not stand there and tell me your love is more dangerous than mine." Adrian stared at her. Something in him surrendered. Not to weakness, to her. "What do you need?" he asked. Grace breathed. "The locket. A way in. And a promise. Anything. If this goes wrong, save Lily first." Adrian's expression darkened. "Grace, promise me." His voice was barely human. "I promise I will save her. And me." He stepped closer. "I will burn the city for both of you." Midnight turned the Regent Crown into a tower of glass and storm. Rain slashed across the rooftop helipad. Wind whipped Grace's hair against her face as she stepped out of the stairwell alone. The city glowed beneath her, endless and indifferent. Vivienne stood near the center of the helipad in a white coat. Beautiful, even in the storm. Lily was beside her, crying, held by one of Vivienne's men. Grace's entire body moved toward the child. Vivienne lifted a gun. "Careful." Grace stopped. "I brought the locket." "Show me." Grace held it up. The tiny gold locket looked harmless in her palm. A child's necklace. A keepsake. But inside, Adrian's men had found a hidden chip containing encrypted documents. Elena had died protecting. Vivienne's eyes gleamed. Do you know what that little thing is worth? Grace looked at Lily. No. An umpire. Then take it. Vivian smiled. You really would give up that much power for one child. Grace's voice was steady. You keep calling her things. Inheritance. Bloodline. Power. That's why Elena hid her from you people. Viviana's smile faltered. You know nothing about Elena. I know she died trying to protect her daughter from women like you. Vivian's face hardened. Women like me survive because we understand the world. Men take. Families use. Power eats whatever kneels. Her gaze dragged over Grace. You should have stayed on the floor where I left you. The rooftop door behind Grace opened. Adrian stepped out. Alone. No visible weapon. No army. Grace's heart stopped. Vivian laughed. You never did follow instructions. Adrian looked at Lily first. Then Grace. Only then Vivian. Let the child go. Vivian pointed the gun at Grace. Come closer and I ruin your maid. A muscle moved in Adrian's jaw. She has a name. Grace's chest ached. Vivian rolled her eyes. Yes? Yes. Grace Miller. Saint of housekeeping. Savior of stolen children. The curvy little nobody who made New York's most dangerous man forget he was supposed to marry power. Not rescue pity. Grace flinched. Adrian did not. He walked forward one step. Do you know why you lost? He asked. Vivian's grip tightened. I haven't. You did. In the hallway. His eyes were ice. You thought making her kneel made her small. But I have seen powerful men beg with less dignity than she had on that floor. Grace stared at him through the rain. Vivian screamed. Enough. Her man shoved Lily forward. Grace threw the locket. It skidded across the wet rooftop. Vivian lunged for it. That was when the lights went out. The helipad plunged into darkness. Grace moved on instinct. She ran for Lily. A hand grabbed her coat. A shot cracked into the storm. Adrian hit the man holding Grace with the force of a collision. They went down hard. Lily screamed. Grace caught the child and pulled her against her chest. Run to the stairs, Grace shouted, but Vivian rose with the gun. Adrian saw first. He moved between them. The shot struck him in the shoulder. Grace screamed his name. Adrian staggered but did not fall. His men flooded the rooftop from 3 entrances. Black shapes in rain and flashing red emergency lights. Vivian tried to run, clutching the locket. But Massimo's remaining men turned on one another in panic as Adrian's people overtook them. Grace held Lily behind an air vent, covering her ears. Adrian crossed the rooftop toward Vivian, despite the blood darkening his shirt. Vivian pointed the gun again. Her hand shook. You won't kill me, she hissed. My father. Your father is already on a plane to a country that will sell him back to me by morning. Her face went white. Adrian took the gun from her trembling hand, as if removing a toy from a child. Then he leaned close. You should have picked up your own purse. Vivian's knees buckled. Police sirens wailed far below. Federal agents stormed the rooftop minutes later. Led by a woman Adrian clearly hated, but trusted enough to tolerate. The files in the locket had gone live the moment Vivian opened it. Names. Payments. Murders. Bribes. Offshore accounts. The Sloan Empire began collapsing before dawn. But Grace did not watch Vivian get taken away. She was on the wet rooftop beside Adrian, pressing both hands against his shoulder as rain washed over them. Don't you dare, she whispered. His face was pale, but his eyes found hers. Are you ordering me? Yes. Good. You got shot. I noticed. This is not the time to be impossible. His mouth curved faintly. Grace Miller. I have been impossible for years. She laughed through tears, furious and terrified. Lily crawled beside them and placed a dinosaur bandage on Adrian's hand. For later, she said shakily. Adrian looked at the bandage, then at Lily. Something in his face broke open. He reached for her slowly, giving her time to move away. She did not. The child put her small arms around his neck. Adrian closed his eyes. Grace watched the most feared man in New York hold a little girl in the rain like she was the last piece of his soul. And in that moment, she understood. Adrian Bellucci had not become soft. He had become claimed. The hospital room was quiet when Grace woke. Morning light filtered through cream curtains. Machines beeped softly nearby. Her body ached from bruises she barely remembered earning. Adrian sat beside her bed. Not on the chair, on his knees. His injured shoulder was bandaged beneath a black shirt. His face was shadowed with exhaustion. One hand rested near hers, not touching, as if he had been waiting for permission even while she slept. Grace looked at him. "You look terrible." His eyes lifted. "You should see the other families." She smiled despite herself. Then her throat tightened. Lily, sleeping in the next room, guarded, safe, angry that hospitals do not serve pancakes at midnight. Grace closed her eyes in relief. Adrian's hand finally covered hers. Warm, careful, real. "Vivienne," she asked, "gone from your life." That sounds vague. It is legally safer. Grace gave him a tired look. He leaned closer. "No one will hurt you for what happened. The scandal is dead." The hotel issued a public apology. Hensley confessed. The stolen bracelet was found in Vivienne's own suite, where she planted it badly because arrogance makes people careless. Grace looked at the ceiling. "So it's over." "No." She turned back. Adrian's voice lowered. "The war is over. But what comes next is yours to decide." Grace's heart began to pound. "I won't be kept in a penthouse." "I know. I won't be your decoration. I would destroy anyone who mistook you for one. I won't give up, Lily." His eyes held hers. "I would never ask you to." Grace searched his face. "You re her uncle?" "Yes. She needs family." "She has you." The words slipped beneath every defense she had left. Adrian leaned closer, his voice rougher now. "I can give her my name, my protection, everything my sister wanted her to inherit. But Grace, she learned safety from your arms. She learned love from your kitchen, your tired hands, your bedtime stories after double shifts. Blood does not erase that." Grace's eyes filled. Adrian looked down at their joined hands. "I do not know how to ask for things gently." "No," she whispered. "You really don't, but I am asking." His jaw tightened as if the words hurt. "Let me be in her life. Let me be in yours. Not as your owner, not as your savior. As the man who will spend the rest of his life earning the moment you stop expecting me to leave." Grace's tears slipped free. "You're still dangerous." "Yes. You still scare me." "I know." "And you still think buying hotels is a normal apology?" "It was effective." "Adrian." His mouth softened. "Barely. But enough. I will learn smaller apologies." Grace laughed through tears. He lifted her hand and pressed his mouth to her knuckles. The kiss was not possessive. It was reverent. That frightened her more than possession ever could have. Because possession, she could fight. Devotion could undo her. 3 months later, Grace returned to the Regent crown. Not as a maid, not as a scandal. As the new director of guest dignity and staff welfare, a title Adrian claimed sounded too gentle for the amount of power she had been given. Grace told him that was the point. The hotel looked different in morning light, brighter, cleaner. Not because the marble had changed, but because the people inside had. The staff entrance had been renovated. Housekeepers had new break rooms, fair schedules, legal support, and wages that made several employees cry when Grace announced them. Every complaint from a wealthy guest now required review before punishment. Every hallway camera had privacy protections. Mr. Hensley was gone. Vivian's name had disappeared from charity boards, society pages, and every room she once ruled. But Grace still paused outside the presidential suite. The same hallway, the same marble, the same place where she had knelt. For a moment, she saw it again. The purse, the laughter, the shame. Then the door opened. Adrian stood there in a black suit, tattoos hidden beneath crisp cuffs. His eyes as intense as the first day. But this time, Lily peeked around him, wearing a school uniform and holding a paper crown. "Grace," she shouted. "Uncle Adrian made pancakes wrong." Grace looked at Adrian. "You made pancakes in a presidential suite." She said she was hungry. "There's room service." She said mine would taste more special. Lily whispered loudly. They tasted like circles of sadness. Grace laughed. Adrian looked offended in the controlled way only he could. "I run an empire. You cannot run a stove," Grace said. His gaze warmed. Slowly, dangerously. "I have other strengths." Grace felt that look all the way through her. Lily made a face. "Are you doing the staring thing again?" Grace coughed. Adrian did not look away. "Yes." Lily sighed with the exhaustion of a child surrounded by complicated adults. Grace stepped into the suite. It no longer felt like entering his world. It felt like entering the space they were building between them. Later that evening, rain began to fall over Manhattan. Grace stood near the window, watching headlights blur across the streets below. Behind her, Lily slept on the sofa after insisting she was not tired. A half-finished drawing lay on the table. Grace, Lily, and Adrian standing under a giant umbrella, all holding hands. Adrian came up beside Grace silently. He had mastered many things. Approaching her without making her feel trapped had taken the longest. "You were quiet at the hotel today," he said. "I was remembering." His gaze lowered. "The hallway." Grace nodded. He stood beside her for a long moment. "I should have come out sooner." Grace looked at him. "You came out when it mattered." "No." His voice was soft, but hard with regret. "Men like me always come after the wound. After the insult. After the damage. We call it protection because we are too late for prevention." Grace turned fully toward him. "You're not responsible for every cruel person in the world. I am responsible for the ones who stood in my hallway." She smiled faintly. "Your hallway." His eyes darkened with familiar intensity. "Our hallway." The words settled between them. "Our." Grace's heart opened around it. Adrian lifted his hand toward her face, then paused, still asking, still learning. Grace closed the distance herself. His palm touched her cheek. The city glittered behind them. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Somewhere below, sirens cried through Manhattan, reminding them that the world outside remained dangerous, hungry, and cruel. But inside the suite, there was warmth. There was a sleeping child. There was a woman who had once been forced to kneel and had risen with an empire at her back. There was a man who had once believed love was only another weakness, now standing still because her trust mattered more than his control. Adrian leaned down. Grace met him halfway. Their first kiss was not gentle at first. It carried too much fear. Too much restraint. Too many almost interrupted by violence and pride. His hand trembled once against her cheek, and that small tremor undid her more than any confession. Then he slowed. For her, Grace felt at the moment a dangerous man chose not to take more than she offered. When they parted, his forehead rested against hers. "I love you," he said. The words sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. Not false, just newly born. Grace closed her eyes. "You say that like a threat." "It might be." She smiled. "Try again." His thumb brushed her cheek. "I love you," he said. Softer. "And I am terrified of what that makes me." Grace opened her eyes. "It makes you human." His gaze held hers. "No." He looked toward Lily, then back to Grace. "It makes me yours." The rain fell harder. Grace remembered the woman she had been on the marble floor. Humiliated and silent. Reaching for someone else's purse because survival demanded swallowing pride. She wished she could go back and tell that woman one thing. Not that a powerful man would save her. Not that the people who laughed would fall. But that one day, she would stand in the same hallway and not feel small. She would be loved without shrinking. Protected without being owned. Desired without being pitied. And when the door opened behind her, it would not be the beginning of her rescue. It would be the beginning of her becoming impossible to break. Adrian took her hand. In the window's reflection, Grace saw them together. The maid and the Mafia boss. The woman who had been laughed at. The man who had made the room go silent. And behind them, on the table, Lily's drawing fluttered slightly in the warmth from the vent. 3 figures beneath one umbrella. A family born from danger. A love sharpened by war. A story New York would whisper about for years, though no one would ever get it right. They would say Adrian Bellucci opened a door and saved a hotel maid. But Grace knew the truth. He opened the door and found the woman who would save what was left of him.